Hi guys, I'm back again today with another video, and today we're checking out the most dangerous race in the world. It's been a while since we reacted to this type of videos, and this was requested on my Instagram. But then it took a while just because I wanted to finish the Buy Me a Coffee requests before I get to this. But anyways, before we do start, don't forget to subscribe, click the bell button, and let's see. This looks like a motorbike.
This is the most
So
dangerous race on Earth. Motorcycles
Oh,
flying at over
I don't like
200 miles
motorcycles.
per hour on the
Full
public
stop.
road. At times, even fully airborne. And since its inception, over 280 people
Oh.
have died racing here. Many people are calling for it to be
Oh.
banned. But the fans, organizers, and of course, the racers themselves refuse to let that happen. So let's take a look at this race going back over 100 years and find out if it's truly worth it to race at the Isle of Man
it's not.
TT, or if it's just motorsports suicide. The Sulby
You could say
Strait,
that.
the fastest section of the 37-mile TT course. 200 miles per hour, oftentimes with only one tire touching the ground
my
thanks
gosh,
to the many
what?
bumps and crests in the road's surface. This isn't a race for ordinary people. Hell, this isn't even a race for ordinary racing drivers. This is a race
no.
for people who are undeniably, unequivocally insane.
Oh.
This year, there are a few familiar
I saw
crazies.
the tire.
Peter Hickman, Connor Cummins, John McGuinness, and of course, Michael Dunlop. All are seasoned riders at the Isle of Man, but Michael Dunlop, he comes from a lineage of TT champions. Robert, his father, Joey, his uncle, and William, his brother. The Dunlop dynasty goes back nearly 50 years. But the Dunlop family represents more than just the glory of the TT, because Michael is the only surviving member of the Dunlop dynasty. His brother,
And he's still
father,
going?
and uncle all lost their lives
Oh,
racing
gosh.
motorcycles. And just this year, on the Isle of Man, 5 racers were killed in horrible accidents during the race. Which seems insane. Surely this race is too dangerous to continue doing. But for nearly 120 years, the TT has yet to be stopped. And to understand why, we need to go back to when it all started. The very first race on the Isle of Man was held as a slap in the face to Britain's Motor Car Act of 1903. The Motor Car Act regulated speeds on British highways to 20 miles per hour, and it allowed local towns to implement even lower speeds as requested. By this point in time, racing was already huge in Europe, and racers in the UK saw this as a major setback. Sir Julian Ord, the secretary of the Automobile Club of Great Britain
This is
and
just
Ireland,
stupidity.
thought that this new act would put a strain on the advancement of performance-oriented vehicles. And so, he took action and set off to the Isle of Man in hopes of persuading the Isle's government to see things his way. Now, the Isle of Man is protected by the British military and is represented by the United Kingdom in foreign matters. But ultimately, the Isle of Man is self-governing, and the local parliament is in charge of all domestic affairs. Sir Julian Ord, a charming fellow, wined and dined a few Manx officials. By the way, Manx means from the Isle of Man. And Sir Julian Ord asked them if he could organize a race for the advancement of the British motor car, of course. The Manx authorities were happy to host this race and be part of the progress of the British automobile. So in 1904, the very next year, the Highways Act of 1904 was passed, and it allowed the Isle of Man to set up a 52-mile course for the Gordon Bennett car trials of 1904. That's right, the first races on the Isle of Man were car races, and the trials were a screaming success. Clifford Earle won the first event, doing 5 laps in 7 hours and 26 minutes.
7
And he won it
hours
again the very next
driving.
year in 1905, having done 6 laps in 6 hours and 6 minutes. But by this year, people wanted more. More speed, more excitement, more danger. And so it was in this year that motorcycles were first introduced, competing the day after the cars race. It was called the International Motor Car Cup Race. But funny enough, bikes back then weren't quite like bikes now. Most of them didn't have enough power to get up the steeper sections of the course, and so they had to restructure the entire course to account for these low-power two-wheeled racers. This new abridged route allowed the first winner, J.S. Campbell, to finish the course in 4 hours and 9 minutes. A blisteringly fast result for the time, and his bike only caught fire once. People absolutely loved the motorcycle racing. So much so that by January of 1907, it was proposed that motorcycle motorcycles should headline their own event at the Isle. Both the racers and
Wow.
organizers were on board, so they whipped up some new guidelines. They would host two classes: single-cylinder machines that averaged 90 miles per gallon and twin-cylinder machines that averaged 75 miles per gallon. On top of that, they required regulations for saddles, pedals, mudguards, exhaust silencers, but that was it. So in May of 1907, the inaugural International Autocycle Tourist Trophy took place. But if you were in the club, you called it the Isle of Man TT, and it was a smashing
Tourist
success.
Trophy
26
TT.
people entered the event, with only 13 of them finishing, and Charlie Collier set the fastest lap in his 3.5 horsepower matchless motorcycle. And year by year, as more competitors signed
I'm really thankful for this video because I never thought about it because like I could care less, but it's really interesting how he's giving us the whole history and making us realize how dangerous this is. So I like this. Thank you for the research
this lap
and
in his
information.
3.5 horsepower matchless motorcycle. And year by year, as more competitors signed up, those lap records were whittled away. By 1910, the fastest laps were in the low 3-hour range. And by 1911, the entire course was adjusted again. Now it was 37.5 miles, and it was called the Snaefell Mountain Course. And along with this new course came a new class, the Junior TT. This was open to 300cc single-cylinder bikes and 340cc twin-cylinder bikes. And it was a 4-lap race instead of the 5 laps of the senior class. But perhaps the biggest addition for this year were the grandstands along the course. Because by now, the crowds of spectators were so massive that just the lawns and sidewalks along
so
the
they
road
made
weren't enough. The very first
And it's
winner on the new
dangerous.
course was Junior TT class Percy Evans, racing on a Humber motorcycle. He finished his 4 laps in 3 hours and 37 minutes, averaging about 41 miles per hour. In the senior class, Oliver Godfrey set the fastest time of 3 hours and 56 minutes riding an Indian motorcycle. So, as you can see, Sir Julian Ord was onto something when he started this race, and the Isle of Man was quickly becoming world famous with its ridiculous speeds and heroic racers. But along with those rapidly growing speeds came a rapidly growing death toll. There is a safe way to race though, and it's called a high-performance driver education event. That's why we're happy to announce that this episode is supported by Rev Match Track Days. Are you one of those squares that owns a fast car and only drives it on the street? Well, it's time for you to grow up and get to a track day. Rev Match Track Days are perfect for anyone looking to get some seat time. If you're a total novice, Rev Match will make sure you get high-quality instruction that will take you through the steps of learning your car and set you up to be safer and faster at the limit. And if you're already a track junkie like myself, Rev Match has some of the best events in the business, with tons of track time, all for way less money than the competition. If you sign up for their upcoming Midwest Track Tour in October, you'll get to race on Gingerman Raceway, Autobahn Country Club, and Blackhawk Farms Raceway all in one weekend, all for one low price. Plus, if you use the code ALBON5 at checkout, you'll get 5% off your purchase. So get off your butt and hit the link in the description and drive that car like it was meant to be driven with Rev Match. Now, back to the video. That 1911 race was the first time that somebody died racing at the Isle of Man. Victor Surridge was killed in an accident during practice. He was attempting to overtake another racer, but ran wide and crashed into a ditch. The medics said that at the speed that he was going, he likely died on impact. This death was tragic, but like I said, it was only the first. So at the time, many saw it as a unlucky moment for the sport, a one-off tragedy. But what people didn't know at the time was that just one person dying at the TT would later be considered one of the safest weekends in its entire history. Over the years, the TT proved to be an immensely deadly race. Including that first death in 1911, 265 motorcycle racers have lost their lives on that course. Plus, one person was killed racing a car, 2 more racers died during parade laps, 5 racing officials have died in accidents, and even 2 spectators have been killed. And then there were the other fatal incidents that we'll talk about later. Today,
I'm not gonna sit and watch this stuff
the death
because
toll is at 280 people. Now, to be totally fair,
just...
not all of these deaths were during the actual Isle Isle of Man TT race. Only
Yeah.
155 people have died during practice
Oh my
or
God, look at
actual
that
races, but the
crash.
280 death toll figure includes the people that died during the Manx Grand Prix and Clubman TT races of the 1940s and 50s. The Manx Grand Prix was the amateur racers version of the Isle of Man TT, and the Clubman TT was a class for production motor cars during the 40s and 50s. These classes were meant for new names to rise up the ranks, and the real stars of the sport weren't allowed to participate. Needless to say, putting total amateurs up to a grueling race like the TT ended badly for a lot of competitors. No matter how experienced you were, the TT is a race that is always knocking on death's door. The deadliest year ever, 2005, where 11 people died. The safest years, well, since 1937, the only year where there were 0 fatalities, 1982. It's insane to think about. Anyone who attended, whether you were a racer or a spectator, knew that at least one of the people that lined up at the start line wouldn't be around at the end of the day. But that's not to say that the event organizers didn't try to make things safer. There have been numerous attempts over the years to increase safety.
I'm not watching something that like statistically that if something goes wrong, the bike or something is gonna hit you from nowhere and it's over. Yeah, I'm not going. Yeah. Or I would watch from like a building or something. I don't know. I'm not watching there on the streets on the side. No, thank you.
And mitigate fatalities. But sadly, like most things today, those safety
sometimes
adjustments
I'm so thankful like my interests in life are not.
Frank Bateman died in 1913, and so crash helmets became mandatory from
How do you call it?
1914
They're not
onward. In 1927, Archie
deadly.
Birkin died during practice when he collided with a fish fan that was just driving on the open road. So from 1928 onwards, practice sessions were held on closed public roads. In 1934, Sid Crabtree crashed in heavy fog. Organizers didn't know where he was for over half an hour until a random bystander stumbled across his lifeless body. So from 1935, they employed 2 motorcycle riding traveling marshals that had one job: to search for missing riders. Yet, in that same year, Doug J. Perry died after crashing due to poor visibility because of mist and fog. So in 1936, they implemented a weather delay policy, in which races were postponed to the next day if the weather was inclement. And they even moved practice sessions to the evening to avoid the slippery morning dew. And during the 50s, there were a bunch of new regulations made, even a full course restructuring. Some of the roads were widened, and buildings that were deemed too close to dangerous corners were totally demolished. But the danger was ever present. In 1970, 6 people died at the TT. So in 1971, there was further road widening. But it really seemed like no matter how many safety precautions were taken, the speed of the bikes and the racers would far outpace whatever the organizers could do. Fast forward to 2004, and a newcomer named Sergei Lemol crashed and died during his first practice session. So in 2005, they implemented a newcomer speed control lab that was introduced to familiarize newbie riders.
I know some people are gonna comment and be like, but it's part of the sports, so them wanting to join is, they know it's part of it. You cannot avoid this in all sports. I get it, but this sport is literally like, this one is literally like, if you the waiver is gonna say, if you don't care about your life, sign here, because we don't guarantee you coming back. Thank you. Because in most sports it's like accidental. It's not like the statistics in other sports are not high as this one. If we calculated the statistics in this one, it's probably like 70% chance, and then maybe in other sports it's like 30%, 40%, but this one is like 70%. So which one are you going to join as a human being who is not suicidal? Obviously, the less chance of you dying is the sport that you're going to join, right?
The course. Yet, in that same year, a Swedish rider named Joakim Karlsson crashed at high speed on the Kirkmichael Bend. This happened to be right outside the home of Marjorie and Ian Forrest, who not only witnessed the crash but were there when the medics came. Karlsson died right there in their front lawn. And the worst
Oh
part was
my.
that the medical helicopter was too busy with other crashes to come pick up Carlson's body. And so he was put into a body bag and left in the Forrest family's front lawn for 90 minutes before practice finally ended and the body could be picked up. And then there
What?
was the 2018 course car incident. A racer named Dan Neen had a horrible crash, so an official course car was sent out to go help at the scene. The course car was full, carrying police officers, and it was traveling at a high speed to get to the scene of
So
the
the course
accident
car
as quickly as
crashed.
possible. But
Oh.
at the same time, racers that were on the course were being directed backwards to the nearest grandstand area so
Oh,
they
this
could
is
clear
a
the course for the
stupid
officials. Steve Mercer was one of those
system.
racers. And out of the blue, the TT course car came around a bend at high speed
Ah,
and collided with Mercer head on. Steve Mercer thankfully
oh,
survived,
thank
but
God.
he was unconscious for 5 days and he was
That's
hospitalized
fine.
for 5 months. Through no
Okay.
fault of his
I hope
own,
he learned.
Steve Mercer was yet another victim of the TT.
So did
Immediately
he
after
stop
that
racing
accident,
or he
a
went
new
back?
red flag
Because then
protocol
that
was
is
put in place.
stupidity.
Now riders must stop and wait on the course until the accident is clear, and they can only travel in course direction accompanied by marshals front and rear. So there absolutely have been efforts to make the race safer, but sadly almost all of these safety measures are reactive instead of proactive, and they're at the cost
Ooh.
of the lives.
Can we put like can we talk to them like, hey, there's a crash here, so stop, like slow down at this part, or not?
Of
Look at
hundreds
that
of
guy.
TT racers.
And he could
As
easily
Sir
get
Julian Ord
hit
predicted
also.
100 years ago, when given the freedom, the automobile will continue to
Oh,
get faster and faster.
of
And for the
course.
TT, that also meant that the race would continue
gonna
to get
get
more
crazier.
and more dangerous. But despite its dangerous nature and ever-increasing death toll, the Isle of Man TT continues to attract record-breaking crowds. Through the
No,
new
I'm not
millennium, the
going.
race has grown tremendously. And in 2019, the largest crowd yet was recorded with over
I will watch like
46,000
the car
spectators. Then the
races, like
race took a break for 2
F1. I
years
know they
because of the
also have
pandemic.
accidents
But
and
regardless,
stuff,
it's proof that
but
despite
it's
all the negative
less.
press, spectators and racers alike love the Isle of Man TT. But of course
thank
they
you.
do. What is there not to love? Every year we get to see the fastest and craziest motorcycle racers on the planet
do
compete
without
in a
it.
sport that is so raw, so visceral in feeling. With car racing, it's easy to see the field as just machines. But with motorcycles, each bike is seen as an extension of the rider, a living, breathing
Why
limb
do
that
human beings
racers
seek
use to
for
perform some of
death,
the most
right?
exciting
Like,
feats on the planet. Just
what are you
watch
guys
the
doing?
insane POV clips, the do or die Hail Mary
Oh,
saves,
oh,
and of
oh, he's
course
like-
the record-breaking lap times. The fastest outright
I know, I
lap
really
ever
got,
was set
into
by
it
Peter
then.
Hickey riding a BMW S1000RR. 16 minutes and 42
Oh, that's
seconds.
foggy.
And he did it by averaging over 135 miles per hour for the entire lap. Then there's
you
our
can
old
see-
friend, Michael Dunlop, who still holds the records in super sport and lightweight TT classes. And then there's Jenny Tinmouth, the fastest female ever to lap the Isle of Man, who did an 18:52
This
in her
girl.
CBR 1000. And then there's arguably the most fun class to watch, sidecars. Sidecars
I
were
think
added
these
to
are
the list of
nice.
classes in 1923.
But I
and
don't
it's
know
been
what
going
that guy's
strong
doing.
since. These things are sick. Just look at this. Absolutely bonkers stuff. The fastest sidecar lap ever was done by brothers Tom and Ben Burkhall in their Honda CBR. They averaged 119 miles per hour and
sidecars
lapped an 18.
are dangerous too,
An
but they're
average
kind
of
of like
119
lesser.
miles per hour while leaning like this. Absolute mad lads. And this event isn't just a big deal for
It's crazy.
motorcycle racers and enthusiasts. It's also a massive revenue stream for the Isle of Man as well, bringing in millions of pounds every year. In 2019 alone, the event generated an estimated 37 million pounds for the Manx economy. And that's the
What?
thing. The TT is an integral part of the Manx economy. When the pandemic struck, it was estimated that the race closure cost the Isle of Man somewhere around 246 million pounds. So despite
wow.
the numerous calls to ban the event by bereaved families, politicians, and onlookers, it only makes sense that the Manx government would continue to greenlight the TT.
This is literally like what's this? Squid Games, to be honest. Squid Games in real life is what this sounds to be. Oh, because we need the money. Of course, it's helping our economy. So we will allow this to happen. we'll sacrifice a few lives so that our economy will stand. Anyways, people give birth every day, so it's cool. We'll just change them with other people. Like, what are we doing with our lives? I mean, do you boo boo? But in my perspective, we all have our opinions, right, guys? So let me know yours. I want to hear it. But in my opinion, yeah, no, thank you. This is not safe. But if you are a grown adult and you feel like this is something that you want to do with your life, it's okay to watch it. I'm not saying don't watch it. It's crazy. You can watch it because I will literally watch it too, but on a screen. I'm not gonna do it in person, but I'm gonna watch it on a screen. But if you are deciding to do this as a sport and you love it, go for it. Okay. At the end of the day, it's your life. It's now or never, right?
as it's such a big part of their economy.
But
In
I'm not.
fact, the only times that there hasn't been a TT was World War I, World War II, the
Oh,
COVID pandemic, and 2001 when everyone in England got foot and mouth disease. But let me
oh,
take a step back.
really? That was a
Does
thing.
any of this
Where
matter?
was
The
I?
opinions of people like us, outsiders looking in. We may not
Outsiders.
think the risk is worth it, but to the spectators, the
Yeah.
organizers, the racers
For
themselves,
me,
hell, the
the risk is not worth
motorcycling
it.
world at large, it is worth it. Those who take on the TT are not coerced. They do it willingly, be it for
Yeah, I know.
fame or
Because it's
fortune or
societal.
just for the thrill of it. And if somebody like Michael Dunlop, who's lost his entire kin to motorcycle racing, can come back to take his 21st title all while proclaiming that the TT should never stop, who are we to tell him otherwise? Over 300 people have died
Nobody, we're
climbing
not.
Everest over the years.
Do you,
Over
boo boo?
500 people have died in professional boxing alone. And since 1981,
Bro.
there have been over 400 deaths base jumping.
That's
around
why
the
I
world. And
always,
while
like I
all
said, I thank God for creating me and making me somebody who is not into any of those, because I can't imagine being somebody who is a thrill seeker or somebody who likes those type of sports. Yeah, thank you. But I do. I mean, I do boxing, but as a workout, not to box
communities have
people,
worked to make their
not to
sports safer
compete.
over the years, just like the TT, they are still dangerous, just like the TT. So,
Yeah, they are.
armed with that knowledge, let me ask you again. Is it worth it? Like much of life,
For
it's
me,
a bit of
no.
a moral quandary, one that perhaps will never have a clear answer. But for me, somebody who's too afraid to ride a motorcycle on the
Yeah,
highway,
same.
I can't help but feel tremendous admiration for the feats of heroism, the unfolding legacies, and the absolute motorsports madness that only the Isle of Man TT can create. Thanks for watching. If
Props
you
to
liked the
them.
video, please do hit the like button. It really helps us out. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already.
Thank you to Albon, this channel, for creating this, for giving us in-depth information, and they really gave us a beautiful insight to the sport, right? Like, yeah, for the people who do motorbike racing, props to you guys. Obviously, we're not gonna understand them for deciding to do what they do, and they're not gonna understand us for not wanting to do what they do. We are all different. We all have our likes, wants, preference, and all that. So I'm not gonna judge. I'm just gonna say it's not for me. And also, I'm not going to watch it in person because it's still dangerous as a spectator. But on occasions like this, when I sit in the comfort of my home, yes, anything could happen. Also, like something will drop from the sky and it hits me and whatever. Yes, but I'm not going to the risk, right? I'm unknowing of that risk. But there, you are knowing of the risk, but you still go. So it's different. But anyways, what was I saying? Yeah, like I'm gonna stay away from it. I'm gonna watch in the comfort of my home and watch it on the screen as a reaction if it's up on TV, but I'm not going to seek for it. But each to their own. Let me know your thoughts though. I want to know your um views on this, okay? Because I'm really really intrigued. Thank you guys, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.